Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Alvin Staltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. Over the last couple of years, I've been focusing my attention on les filles du roi, the king's daughters. But earlier this year, I said, I think I need to start another series called Les filles mariées, the marriageable girls who came before. And we've been having a lot of fun with it, and I think it reaches a lot of people who very deep ancestry. Before we begin, let me show you a couple ways you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know. It's called subscribe, like, which is that thumbs up, and notify. Click on that little bell to get notified every time I post new content. This helps the logarithms of YouTube kind of go out there and spread the news, if you will, and I get seen more often. The next three are ways you can show your financial support, which is super thanks, which YouTube has permitted me to do since I achieved 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. And we also have two different platforms, Coffee and Patreon, which are other ways that you can show your support. So with that being said, let's get started and discover our filles mariées of this episode. So as you can see, les filles mariées occurred between 1634 and 1662, 28 years, okay? Only 260 ladies. The thought was they were going to produce so many children, and they did. But certainly 28 years with 200, it's I don't even want to do the math, of how little that is in terms of an impact. And obviously something had to be done. So at the end of 1662, they organized a program called Les Filles du Roi. So if les filles du roi are the founding mothers, then les filles mariées are truly the founding grandmothers. Their stories and their true pioneer instincts. They're coming here individually, one at a time, maybe with a sister, but usually alone. Okay, they're not in a group of 90 or 100 ladies as well, like the filles du roi. So totally different character, if you will. So our episode 22 comes to you from a viewer request. I do not have her in my files, Colin. But in a strange way, I find my own ancestry linked to this lady as well. So we'll see in a minute. Catherine was born in 1637 in Paris, France. Her parents were Jacques Collet and Madeleine de Beauvais. She would have been born in the first arrondissement and in the church of Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois. And it is in the section of Paris that is called Le Louvre, because most of the museum of Le Louvre takes over it. The current church that she would have been baptized was built in the 13th century with major modifications in the 15th and 16th. From 1608 until 1806, it was the parish church for the inhabitants of the palace, if you can believe it. And many notable artists and architects have their tombs in the church. When Notre Dame, the cathedral, had the fire in 2019, the cathedral's regular services were held at Saint-Germain. So it shows you how large, a church this is. And the first arrondissement is, as I've said, it's known as Le Louvre, and is on the right bank of the River Seine. It also includes the west end of the Ile de Cité, that small island that is found inside of Paris. It is one of the oldest areas in Paris, and having been the heart of the city during the Roman conquest, and some parts also date back to the early Middle Ages. It's the least populated of all of the city's arrondissements, and one of the smallest, actually. And it's a very cultural, very historic area, and this is where Catherine was coming from. So Catherine would come to New France in 1654. She was not even 20 years old, probably between 16 and 17. I do not have any evidence that her parents were deceased, but obviously, probably, out of financial necessity, she decided to embark on this journey. So the groom that she selected and who selected her, his name was Claude Guyon. He was born in 1629 in a small place called Mortagne au Perche in France. His parents were Jean Guyon and Mathurin Robin. As you can see, he is from the Normandy region. I've circled it on the map of France. And then inside that is Orne, which is the département or county. And inside of that, we have Mortagne au Perche, which is a very, very interesting place because a couple of very notable people for New France were born here. Zachary Cloutier, Jean-Pierre Poisson, who accompanied Champlain to Canada, and Pierre Boucher, who would become the governor of Trois-Rivières, and also the founder of Boucherville. So this is kind of a hot spot, if you will. That church is the Église Notre-Dame de Mortagne, and it dates from the late 14th century. The picture on the top is of Mortagne au Perche as it exists today. There are about a little under 4,000 people that live there. Not a big community, but certainly a classical one in terms of France and that middle age kind of feeling. Let's have a look at the family that he came from, because that's one of the keys to understanding Claude. So, in understanding Claude, one must understand the family he was born into. He was born into the family of Jean Guyon, and Jean Guyon would become one of the founding original pioneers of Quebec. And here's the story. Robert Guivard had acquired the Seigneurie of Beauport in January of 1634. He came from a region close to where Jean and his family were living. And he and Robert went and recruited some top people to build this new country. Among them was the father of our subject, Jean Guyon, who was a master mason. They needed that kind of skill. He was promised, after 3 years of a contract, to be granted 1,000 acres. I take this information from Thomas Laforest, our French-Canadian ancestor, volume 25, and I've given you the links to be able to go and access that information. Amazing. You need to study that to just kind of get a flavor of how Claude got here. So he was here. Let's have a look. So the Guyon family of 8 arrived in New France on June 4th, 1634. Truly one of the pioneers. At this time, our subject, Claude, was only 5 years old. Imagine crossing an ocean at that age. Canada, New France, was all he would ever really know. I doubt he might have faint memories of France, but he truly was almost a pure Canadian, or Quebecer, as they were. So once Catherine had arrived, Claude obviously was, I'm sure, overjoyed to find a bride. And they were married at the home of his parents in Quebec City on February 7th, 1655. So we find the family, of course, establishing itself on the island of Orleans, Ile d'Orléans. It's located about 3 miles east of downtown Quebec City. The island was one of the very first parts of the province to be colonized by the French, and a large percentage of French Canadians can trace their ancestry to the early residents of this island. It was originally called Grande Ile, which means Big Island, Sainte Marie, and Saint Laurent. But it was eventually renamed in honor of the Henry II, the Duke of Orleans, who happened to be the second son of King Francis I. As you can see from the pictures, I mean, it's just a little piece of heaven, really. Very green, very fertile land. And would have reminded those early French colonists of the land they had left behind. I also want you to point out in the middle there you have the 6 divisions of the island. Even though it's one big island, it's got 6 distinct portions. So I want you to know Saint-Fanny, which was the first, and then we go up to the tip, Saint-François, Saint-Jean down, Saint-Laurent, up, and then we go up to Saint-Pierre, and then finally the last tip, the closest tip to the land, is Saint Petronille. So it's very important to find out where your family came from and where they kind of settled in order to access more records. We have the 1666 census, but not the 1667. We have Claude and Catherine, their son Jean, Marie Magdalene, we have Louise, we have Claude, we have Catherine, And then we have an engagé. Now remember, he was the son of a very wealthy, and so he would have been truly regarded as, succession. By 1681, that became very obvious. We have Claude, we have Catherine, we have their children Jean, Louise, Claude, Catherine, Anne, Jacques, Elizabeth, Marie, Françoise, Gervais. We have one gun, 20 Bazagon, 20 goats, and 50 Arpa Avala. So obviously, this is part of his heritage. He also probably earned it as well and sold and all of that, but obviously had a nice leg up, so to speak. So this is the foundation of the Dion or Guillaume family in terms of the origins of it. So they would go on to have 12 children. Jean would marry Marie Pepin and have 11 children, 9 of whom would make it. Marie Madeleine would marry Gervais Rochon and have 15 children, 12 of whom would make it. Louise would marry Pierre Racine and have 6 children, all of whom would make it. Marguerite would sadly drown and die at 17 months of age. Claude would marry Marie Madeleine Lehoux and have 6 children, 3 of whom would make it. He then would marry Catherine Blouet and had 10 more children, 7 of whom would make it. Catherine would marry Etienne Racine, who was her brother-in-law, and have 10 children, 8 of whom would make it. Marianne would become a nun with the Congregation de Notre-Dame. Jacques would pass away at age 21. Elizabeth would also become a nun with the Notre-Dame in Montreal. René would marry Jacques Pepin and have 5 children, all of whom would make it. You'll notice Jacques Pepin is the brother of Marie Pepin, who married René's brother Jean. It becomes very intricate. We have Françoise married Charles Gravel and had 8 children, 6 of whom made it. Gervais would marry Catherine Lehoux and have 5 children, 4 of whom would make it. Catherine is the sister of Marie Madeleine Lehoux, who her Gervais' brother Claude married. So, that's a big story there. So, a lot of children in this particular lineage. Catherine would pass away January 10th, 1688, and is buried at the Saint Famille Cemetery. Claude would remarry Marguerite Binaudière, who was a fille du roi, but did not have any children with her, and he would pass away in 1694 and is buried at Quebec City. Here we have the famous statue at Ile d'Orléans, and we have Claude's name, Dion, Claude, originaire de Mortagne à Perche, marié à Catherine Colin, and it's a Saint Famille established in 1656. Now, as befits a family this old, there are so many names that it's known under. So let's go through Dion, Desilets, Desbrais, Dubuisson, Dufresnay, Dumontier, Duplessis, Durovet, Dutilly, Fresnay, Grave, Guyon, Guionnet, Guiotard, Guionnet, Guillot, Lemoine, Lafleur, Prézot, Saint-Julien, Lyon, Lyonnais, Guillot, Guillot. So that comes from Laforest, Thomas J. Laforest, page 143 out of his volume that I've talked about. Although I did not have a direct relation to Catherine, I knew that I was related to the Guillaume family. So part of genealogy is understanding the families that they come from. So Claude's family had 8 members, or a lot of siblings. I am a direct descendant of Marie and Marie Barbe. Both of his sisters. So Claude would be my 9 times great uncle, and by marriage Catherine would be my aunt. However, this website is truly remarkable. Even though if this is not even your direct line, I'm putting the links in because it does go into detail about the Guillaume family. And anything you can find out about your family is kind of a neat thing. I was surprised to find out that there wasn't a Dion family association. If anyone knows the link and whatever, I'd be glad to post it. But I searched and searched. There is one page, but it doesn't go any further. It doesn't It's not really interactive. So I didn't want to post it until I knew it was really functional. So if anyone out there knows about a Dion Family Association that I need to post, please let me know. I'd be glad to, promote it and all that good stuff. As always, these are my resources. We have the Quebec Genealogical E-Society. We have some of the family associations I want to talk about. The Quebec Family History Society, the French Canadian Heritage Society of Michigan. They have so many webinars and so many meetings. You need to check that out. And the American French Genealogical Society and the American Canadian Genealogical Society are all wonderful, wonderful tools. I posted the addresses for y'all to have a look at. Then we have WikiTree, which is, the mothership of all research, in addition to Généalogie Québec, which is a remarkable place as well. And then, of course, the French Canadian genealogy. I love what that genealogist is doing. She really is going in depth, analyzing and examining so many things. Really, really recommend that site. And then Maple Stars and Stripes, of course, my idol, Sandra Goodwin. And Généalogie du Québec et d'Amérique française is Nos Origines. I have posted the link to that for you to have a look. So, Catherine Collet and Claude Guillaume, who are truly, truly pioneers in so many ways. And Catherine came across and married into this really, really historical and very important French-Canadian family. We obviously know that they produced quite a number of children, but what you don't know yet is how many descendants as of 1729 there were of this particular couple, just this couple. 334 descendants as of 1729. So I suspect that there will be quite a number of people who can lay claim to being a descendant and of this particular amazing family. So let me know in the comments below if you are a descendant or even just a cousin of. So with that, I want to express my thanks to Catherine for being an amazing woman who dared to come to New France and made a commitment and was definitely a person who made a difference in this world. Obviously, 334 descendants. There's an impact there that is just remarkable. We are grateful for her dedication. We are honored by her presence. And most of all, we thank her for making the trip to our shores. Until I see you on episode 23, au revoir.